Morning on the human frontier world always arrived gently, like a soft, familiar friend knocking before entering. Golden light crept across the dusty plains, slipped through the windows of cluttered workshop, and settled over scattered data pads, coils of wire, and a cup labeled Galaxy's #1 dad. Jonathan Hale, 38, soft-spoken, perpetually composed, sipped from that mug while examining a half-finished device on his work table. Outside, domed houses dotted the barren landscape, like quiet bubbles of civilization. This settlement wasn't much by galactic standards, but for Jonathan, it was a sanctuary built from peace, sweat, and a little boy who now zoomed to the workshop as if the whole building were a playground. Little Aaron, barely 8, held 2 bolts in his hands and slammed them together while making whooshing noises. "Look, Dad, battle cruisers." Jonathan glanced over, a smile tugging gently at his lips. "Careful, Captain. Last time your fleet almost knocked over my stabilizer array." Aaron giggled, and the sound filled the workshop like warmth. Jonathan had turned down multiple jobs on Earth to live out here, far from politics, far from the ancient grudges humanity had collected among the stars. This planet was supposed to be quiet, an honest life where a father and son could build things together instead of running from something. And then peace snapped. The workshop door didn't open. It exploded inward. Metal shrieked. Hinges flew. Dust blasted across the room. Aaron dropped his makeshift ships. Jonathan placed his mug down slowly, very slowly, because anything faster might betray the storm rising under his ribs. Towering silhouettes filled the doorway. Vargo Dominion soldiers, reptilian giants plated in volcanic black armor. Their helmets hummed with scanning runes that crawled over every surface, and over Aaron's stunned face. Jonathan clasped his hands behind him like a polite host facing rude guests. "Good morning," he said calmly. "May I help you, gentlemen?" The lead soldier stepped forward, crest rising like a serrated crown. His voice rasped like 2 boulders grinding together. "By order of the Dominion Genetic Regulation Bureau, we are collecting unregistered younglings. Human reproduction continues to violate cross-species population ratios." Jonathan blinked once, twice. Then he smiled, but it was a sort of smile that belonged on a statue, not a living man. "My son is not a youngling specimen," he replied evenly. "He's a child, and he isn't going anywhere." Aaron clung to Jonathan's sleeve as the soldiers fanned out. One shoved a shelf aside. Another kicked over tools with the smug arrogance of someone who believed nothing smaller than an empire could oppose him. A Vargo trooper picked up Jonathan's unfinished stabilizer. "Primitive device," he declared, as if diagnosing a disease. Jonathan inhaled through his nose. "Please, that took me 3 weeks." The leader raised a clawed hand. "The child is required for Dominion study. His neural patterns will be harvested for research." Jonathan's face didn't change, but something deep behind his eyes did, something silent, ancient, and lethal. "Before you take another step," he said softly, "I hope you filed your next of kin paperwork." The soldiers laughed. Humans always joked, they thought. Humans always panicked, they believed. Humans were predictable prey. Jonathan didn't fight when they tore Aaron from his arms. He didn't shout, didn't lunge. He simply watched with a terrifying stillness as the son was dragged across the ground, small hands reaching out, eyes wide and confused. He memorized everything. Every armor plate, every insignia, every ship code burned into his mind like a list he would one day revisit. The Vargo shoved Aaron into a transport cruiser. Engines roared. Dust spiraled. The ship rose into the sky like an insult. Jonathan stood in the workshop doorway long after the engines vanished. He breathed in once, and the breath trembled, not with fear, with control. He turned to his workbench, pressed a concealed panel, and a small holoscreen blinked alive. A single phrase pulsed in military red. "Activate protocol, Mama Bear." Jonathan tapped yes. The signal left the planet at the speed of fury, encoded in a way every human soldier in the galaxy recognized. It meant only one thing. A human child has been taken. Hours later, the sky tore open. A gunship descended like a falling thunderbolt, engines flattening the planes. Dust spiraled into towering halos as the hatch hissed open. General Helena Ward stepped out. Tall, immaculate, eyes that looked carved from storm clouds preparing to break. And behind her came two Bigfoots, 9-foot titans of muscle and intelligent ferocity, fur bristling like living armor. Each step shook the ground. Each breath sounded like a mountain waking. Jonathan bowed calmly. General, thank you for answering the signal. Helena held up a small wooden toy ship she had found near the demolished door. Dust still clung to the carved sails. They took your boy, she said quietly. They believe they'll survive the week, Jonathan replied. The Bigfoots rumbled, a deep, seismic growl that made dust skitter across the floor. Helena's eyes darkened with shared promise. Tell me everything. And Jonathan did, every detail with cold, surgical precision. When he finished, Helena nodded once. We'll bring him home. Jonathan's jaw tightened. I'm going with you. You will, she said. Because the Dominion made a mistake, no empire survives. What mistake? Jonathan asked. Helena glanced at the Bigfoots, then back at the sky where the Vargo ship had vanished. They touched a human child, she said, and humans do not fight alone. The Dominion warship Craxlin punched through the atmosphere with a shriek of stress metal, fleeing into the sky like a guilty predator running from a crime it didn't expect to be punished for. Inside its steel gut, alarms pinged in steady rhythms and reptilian officers barked overlapping orders in their gravelly tongue. Admiral Varkesh, broad-shouldered and crowned with jagged bone spines, glared at his trembling crew. No distractions. Deliver the human youngling to the research deck. The elders want the neural extraction prepared before we enter the neutral zone. His command team nodded, though their claws twitched with unease. Something about today felt wrong. Too easy, too clean, too quiet. Meanwhile, in a containment pod of cold metal and blinking lights, little Aaron Hale sat curled up with his knees under his chin. He did not cry. He did not scream. Instead, he breathed slowly the way his father taught him when fear pressed too hard. Quiet makes your mind sharp, Jonathan always said, and sharp minds survive. Aaron clung to that now. The pod vibrated with each engine burst, yet the boy's eyes remained focused, steady, unbroken. Every Dominion scientist who walked past his transparent cell felt an uncomfortable prickle of fear under their scales. Human juveniles aren't supposed to be this calm, one muttered. They tremble. They beg. They panic. This one knows something, a third whispered. Aaron didn't answer. He simply lifted his gaze and locked eyes with the nearest scientist. That single, silent look made the alien recoil. Far behind the Dominion vessel, the human gunship Valkyrie's Mercy sliced through orbit like a blade dipped in fire. General Helena Ward stood beside the holographic star map, watching the warship's trajectory with unblinking precision. They're fleeing towards Sector 9, she observed. Jonathan Hale tightened the straps of his tactical vest. Not because he needed the armor. He barely knew how to use half the equipment. But because his hands needed to be busy or he'd break something. Is that bad? He asked. Helena exhaled slowly. Sector 9 contains abandoned research graves. Facilities of Dominion shut down decades ago. They think they can hide there. Jonathan shook his head. They're not hiding from us. They're hiding from what's chasing them. As if agreeing, one of the Bigfoots rumbled from the rear of the ship. The enormous creature sniffed the recycled air, then grunted a deep, ancient sound that vibrated bolts along the walls. Helena glanced back. They can smell fear across vacuum, and they smell your son. Jonathan shut his eyes as if absorbing a blow. His voice grew tight. Good. Another Bigfoot lumbered forward, resting its massive hand on Jonathan's shoulder. It didn't squeeze or shake him. It simply rested there, an anchor, a promise, a mountain offering comfort. They approve of you, Helena remarked. Jonathan huffed a humorless laugh. I don't know whether that should flatter me or terrify me. Both, Helena replied. That's usually the correct reaction. Inside the Dominion ship, chaos simmered beneath the surface. A tech specialist shouted from the sensor station, Admiral, unknown biological signatures, approaching at impossible velocity. What kind of signatures? Varkesh growled. The officer's eyes widened as two massive silhouettes filled the long-range scan. Organic, gigantic, bipedal, impossible. He swallowed. They matched the creatures seen with the human general. Varkesh's tail lashed. The forest myths? The humans' furry giants? Ridiculous. A thunderous shockwave struck the hull. Panels flickered. The ship bucked sideways like a panicked beast. "They're gaining!" screamed the pilot. "Admiral, they're running in open space. Beasts do not track starships." Varkesh snarled, then explained how they're tracking this one. Another shockwave rattled the warship from stern to bow. The Dominion vessel was no longer the hunter. It was prey. In the Valkyrie's mercy, Jonathan gripped the seat as the ship accelerated. "Tell me straight," Jonathan murmured. "Do we have any real chance of catching them?" Helena didn't look at him. She kept her gaze forward, voice steady as steel. "We're not chasing them." Jonathan frowned. "Then what are we doing?" She nodded toward the Bigfoots, bracing themselves against the hull. "We're following the ones who are." Jonathan blinked. "Wait, they're leading us?" "They're the apex predators of Dominion spent centuries pretending didn't exist." Helena smirked. "And they're angry." Jonathan swallowed hard. "About my son?" "No," Helena said. "About anyone daring to touch any human child." A long silence filled the cabin. Then Jonathan whispered, "Tell me what happens when we catch them." Helena finally looked at him. Retrieval, retaliation, rewriting the Dominion. One of the Bigfoots bellowed a deep roar that rattled every bolt of the ship. Jonathan inhaled slowly. Translation? Helena cracked her knuckles. Roughly, prepare their graves. The Dominion warship Craxlin had weathered plasma storms, asteroid scrapes, and even one near miss with a black hole. But nothing, not even cosmic disasters, compared to what slammed into the hull now. A monstrous impact echoed through the vessel, bending metal plates inward like crushed foil. Every Vargo's soldier froze. "What was that?" screeched a junior officer. Before anyone could answer, another blow thudded across the hull. This one louder, heavier, deliberate. The Dominion had mocked human myths for generations. Every species scoffed at Earth's ancient legends. But legends, it turned out, did not require belief to be real. Outside, two enormous Bigfoots hurled themselves along the warship's surface with terrifying speed, their claws sinking into armored plating. Their glowing eyes reflected the flames streaking from the stressed hull. Inside the command deck, alarms wailed as officers scrambled. Breaching forces detected. Impossible, those beasts cannot. A metallic screech tore the air as one Bigfoot drove its arm straight through the hull, fingers curling around support braces. The wall buckled, then it ripped open. A cacophony of atmosphere venting and metal tearing drowned out the officers' screams. Soldiers were flung off their feet as depressurization alarms shrieked overhead. The Bigfoot stuck its head through the breach. Its eyes glowed red. Its growl shook the deck. "Seal that compartment." Varkesh roared. Bulkhead slammed down. But not before the creature tore the opening wider, just enough for a second Bigfoot to leap inside the corridor farther down. Two beasts now hunted inside the Dominion warship. The soldiers stopped thinking of themselves as conquerors. They began thinking like prey. Meanwhile, deep in the research deck, Aaron's containment pod jolted violently as the ship trembled. The lead scientist stumbled, dropping an instrument. "Why are they attacking us?" Another scientist screamed. "The general's forces can't move that fast." Aaron finally spoke, quiet but certain. "They're not soldiers." The scientist glared at him, trembling. "Then were they?" One snapped. Aaron's voice softened. "My dad's friends." Another violent crash rippled through the deck. The lights flickered. Somewhere above them, something roared. The scientist turned pale. Inside Valkyrie's Mercy, Helena felt the shock waves through the hull. "They've made contact," she announced. Jonathan stood and strapped himself into an armor harness, fingers twitching with restrained fury. "Then we're boarding," he said. Helena didn't argue. She simply signaled her Marines. "Wardens, prep for insertion. We follow the breach. Leave the monsters their playground. We take the labs." The Bigfoots growled impatiently. pounding the walls like war drums. The boarding lance extended, a massive mechanical spike, designed to pierce cruiser armor. It fired with a deafening blast, embedding into the weakened Vargo hull. The hatch blew open. Smoke swirled. Helena strode forward. Move. Human Marines poured into the broken corridors. They moved with disciplined silence, weapons raised, boots thudding over trembling metal. Jonathan followed behind Helena. Every breath felt heavy. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't trained for war. But he was a father. And fathers, he had once told Aaron, were built from something stronger than armor. 2 corridors away, a Bigfoot flattened 3-armed soldiers with a single sweep of its arm. Their bodies slammed into the wall like thrown dolls. Another Bigfoot smashed through a reinforced door, just as Dominion troops fired plasma bolts into its chest. The creature snarled, then leaped. Soldiers dropped their weapons as a wave of primal terror crushed their courage. Helena's squad advanced, sweeping past fallen Dominion forces, most knocked unconscious or crippled by the Bigfoot's devastating blitz. Sparks crackled from torn wiring. Smoke clouded every hallway. Jonathan's breathing grew ragged as they approached the research sector. He could feel it, without logic, without proof. Aaron was here. Hold. Helena ordered her troops near a sealed lab door. Jonathan pressed a hand against the metal. Aaron, he whispered. A faint voice answered. Dad. The sound broke Jonathan's composure. His knees weakened. His hands trembled. Helena nodded once to her Marines. Breaching. Explosives detonated in a precise ring. The door blew inward, and Jonathan sprinted inside. Aaron sat in the topple containment pod, eyes wide and wet. Dad. Jonathan grabbed him, lifting him into a crushing embrace. His breath stuttered. His heart finally exhaled. I've got you, Jonathan whispered. I've got you, buddy. Aaron clung to him like he'd never let go again. But behind Jonathan and Helena, a machine began to glow. A massive, pulsing device. A weapon built to devour human fear. Helena's voice grew deadly cold. Jonathan, you need to see this. The chamber glowed like the inside of a dying star, red, pulsing, unpredictable. The Dominion machine loomed in the center, a grotesque lattice of cables, tubes, and psychic amplifiers. It radiated a faint hum, like a heartbeat stolen from something alive but suffering. Aaron clung to his father's neck as Jonathan stared in stunned disgust. What is that thing?" he asked. General Helena Ward stepped forward, her expression carved from granite. A blast of sparks crackled as another panel overloaded. "It's a fear extractor," Helena said. "A hybrid psychic weapon the Dominion has been trying to perfect for years." Jonathan tightened his arms around Aaron. "You mean it feeds on human terror?" Helena finished. "Yes, they've been trying to build a bioweapon powered by our emotional responses. Children produce the most potent neural fear signatures." Jonathan's jaw clenched so tightly his molars ached. "They kidnapped my son to power that?" Aaron buried his face into Jonathan's shoulder. The boy whispered, voice trembling. "They wanted me to scream." Jonathan nearly broke. A tremor rattled the room, metal groaning like the ship itself wanted to collapse under the weight of its sins. The Bigfoot who had followed them stepped closer, sniffing the machine with a deep, unsettling growl. Its fur bristled, its eyes glowing a dangerous amber. Helena nodded toward it. "He knows what it is. His species has seen psychic weapons before, and he despises them." Jonathan whispered, "Good, because so do I." The Bigfoot responded with guttural snarl that shook wires from the ceiling. Across the ship, Dominion soldiers stumbled through smoke-filled corridors, shouting contradictory commands. "Contain the breach. Seal the labs." The beasts have compromised the engine wing. Every corner echoed with heavy footfalls that did not belong to humans. Roars thundered through the ship like living earthquakes. Armor clattered. Plasma bolts sizzled uselessly against towering silhouettes. Admiral Varkesh's voice boomed through the intercom, desperate and furious. "All forces, report. Where is the human child? Where?" A Bigfoot ripped the intercom panel out of the wall and crushed it in one hand. The Dominion's panic only grew. Back in the fear extractor chamber, Helena walked to a console and tapped a few keys. The holographic interface flickered, distorted by the weapon's unstable energy. "I knew they were working on something dangerous," she murmured. "But this exceeds every restriction, every treaty. They've crossed lines even their own elders wouldn't dare." Jonathan looked at the hologram. His blood ran cold. The Dominion's databanks, hundreds of files, were streaming open. A cascade of encrypted codes, facility maps, experimental logs, fleet positions, all unraveling. "What's happening?" Jonathan asked. Helena didn't smile, but satisfaction gleamed in her eyes. "You remember when I told you we were prepared?" Jonathan nodded slowly. "The tracker in Aaron's jacket." "It wasn't a tracker," Helena said. "It was a Trojan seed. When they scanned him, when they connected him to their systems, they unlocked their entire network for us." Aaron looked up. "So, I helped." Jonathan kissed the top of his son's head. "You did more than help. You saved everyone." Helena expanded the hologram. The Dominion's entire empire appeared. Every outpost, every fleet, every black site, highlighted in red. "All of this," Helena said quietly, "belonged to them. And now," Jonathan asked. "Now," Helena said, "it belongs to us." A low rumble shook the room as the Bigfoot stepped toward the psychic weapon. It sniffed again, then slammed its fist into the base of the machine. Sparks erupted. Cables snapped. The machine screeched like something alive and dying. Aaron covered his ears. Jonathan sheltered him with one arm, while gripping Helena's shoulder with the other. "Destroy it," Jonathan said. "Burn it. Scatter its pieces across the void." Helena nodded to the Bigfoot. "Finish it." With a roar that froze the blood of every Dominion soldier within 3 decks, the Bigfoot tore into the machine. Tubes ripped free. Psychic coils shattered. A final surge of energy burst outward like a collapsing star. Then the chamber fell silent. Lights flickered. The weapon lay in ruins. Helena exhaled. One atrocity erased. Jonathan whispered, "Now let's erase the rest of them." A tremor shook the ship again, but this time it wasn't from damage. It was from something outside. Something enormous. Helena tapped her earpiece. "Report." A voice answered, breathless but steady. "General, you're going to see this." The Bigfoot cocked its head, listening. Jonathan held Aaron tightly. Helena nodded. "Bridge. Now." Together, they ran. The galaxy had changed, and the Dominion did not yet understand how much. The bridge door slid open with a hiss, revealing a scene no Dominion officer had ever imagined possible. Human dreadnoughts, massive triangles of steel and light, surrounded the Dominion warship like wolves circling a dying predator. Ion cannons glowed along their spines. The void shimmered with gravitational distortion from their sheer mass. Helena stepped onto the bridge platform, hands clasped behind her back. "Beautiful timing," she murmured. Jonathan stared, breathless. When did they arrive? The communications officer turned from his console. "Sir, the moment Aaron was taken across the border, Earth activated Operation Mama Bear. Every major ship within 3 sectors responded." Jonathan blinked. "I thought Mama Bear was just a phrase." "No, sir," Helena said. "It's a doctrine, a promise, a threat." Her gaze hardened. "And today a reality." Outside, the dreadnoughts rotated into perfect fire and alignment. Their engines hummed like thunder caged within steel. The Dominion bridge crew, now restrained by Helena's Marines, watched the display with widening eyes. "No," one whispered. You would not dare." Helena turned her head slightly. "Listen carefully," she said, her voice calm and polite in a way that made spines curl. "Humans rarely strike first. But when someone harms one of our children," she pointed at the dreadnoughts, "we do not strike back. We end." A Dominion officer trembled. "You're monsters." Helena arched a brow. "We didn't build a machine to torture children." Jonathan added, voice low and calm, "We aren't the monsters. We bring them." Behind him, The doorway vibrated as a Bigfoot stomped onto the bridge. Every Vargo officer recoiled, their scales paling to sickly green-blue. Aaron peeked over Jonathan's shoulder and waved shyly. "Hi!" The Dominion crew seemed ready to faint. Across the display, red icons, Dominion military stations, began winking out one by one. Jonathan frowned. "Are those explosions?" "No," Helena said. "That's their infrastructure shutting down. Your son's Trojan key propagated through their whole empire." Aaron blinked. "What's that mean?" Jonathan answered gently. "It means they can't hurt anyone for a while, buddy." Helena added, "It means we control their communications, their fleets, their central governance, and their weapon systems." A soft beep sounded. An incoming transmission request. The source, Dominion High Council. Helena sighed. These cowards finally noticed. She accepted the transmission. A shimmering hologram of scaled, regal-looking Vargo leaders appeared. Their expressions flickered between outrage and terror. "General Ward of Earth," the lead counselor growled, "you attack us without declaration. Release our ship at once." Helena stepped forward, posture flawless, voice smooth. "You abducted a human child, tortured him, attempted to steal his fear, and used him as a catalyst for a war crime." "That weapon was research," a counselor hissed. Jonathan stepped into view. His eyes alone silenced the entire council. Helena continued calmly. "You violated 12 interstellar laws and 17 Dominion treaties. Earth acknowledges this act as aggression." The Dominion leader sputtered, "What do you want?" Helena raised a hand. Around the bridge, lights dimmed. Human dreadnoughts positioned themselves in a silent, perfect grid. "This is a negotiation," Helena said. "It's a lesson." The Bigfoot behind Jonathan growled, a low, primal rumble that made even the holograms flinch. Helena straightened her uniform. "You will dismantle all child-related research throughout your sectors. You will turn over every psychic weapon you have attempted to build, and you will submit to a 5-year oversight mandate." A counselor hissed, "You cannot enforce." Helena raised a finger. All dreadnoughts activated their main cannons. The bridge glowed white with reflected power. The galaxy held its breath. Helena said softly, politely, as if offering tea, "Say that again." The Dominion Council swallowed. Silence. Then, "We accept." Jonathan exhaled. Aaron squeezed his father's sleeve. And somewhere behind them, a Bigfoot gave a satisfied, rumbling growl. The Dominion had finally learned the one lesson every species must understand if they want to survive long-term alliances with Earth. Do not touch human children. Ever. The Dominion High Council ended the transmission abruptly, leaving the bridge in heavy silence. Outside, human dreadnoughts drifted like mountains forged from starlight. Helena inhaled deeply, her posture softening. Phase 1 complete. Jonathan stroked Aaron's hair. "What's Phase 2? "Securing the Dominion's other legal projects," Helena replied, "and preparing for political aftermath." Aaron tilted his head. "Does that mean more bad guys?" "Not all bad guys," Helena said, kneeling to Aaron's height. "Some are just people who made wrong choices. But some? Yes, very bad." Aaron nodded solemnly. A Bigfoot crouched behind him, placing its giant hand gently atop his head. Aaron giggled. Jonathan blinked. "Is he petting my child?" Helena smirked. "They get attached." The Bigfoot huffed proudly. With the Dominion ship secured, human marines swept through the remaining decks, disabling systems and collecting evidence. Jonathan followed Helena through the battered corridors. "General," he said softly, "I know you planned some of this, but you didn't plan all of it, did you?" Helena gave a tired sigh. "No. The Empire taking your son? That wasn't part of the plan. That was their arrogance, their mistake. And a mistake we used," Jonathan said, not accusing, merely stating. "We didn't force them to build that machine," Helena responded. "We didn't force them to kidnap a child. We simply acted the moment they crossed the line." Jonathan nodded. His calm returned. "The dangerous kind, forged from clarity." "And what happens now?" he asked. Now, Helena said, Earth stops being underestimated. Elsewhere in the ship, Admiral Varkesh sat shackled to support beam, forced to watch his once mighty vessel crumble under the weight of consequences. He snarled as Helena approached. You humans are parasites. Your children weak. Your species emotional. Jonathan stepped in front of Helena. Say another word about children, he said quietly, and you'll lose more than your empire. The entire room went cold. Even the Bigfoot stepped closer. Varkesh shut his mouth. Helena nodded approvingly. Well said. Jonathan exhaled slowly, tension easing from his shoulders. I want to know why, he said, turning to Helena. Why children? Why fear? Helena crossed her arms. The Dominion is dying, Jonathan. Varkesh snarled. Lies! No, Helena replied. Your species faces psychological atrophy. You feel less fear with each generation. You rely on fear to produce your psionic weapons. You needed another species to provide it. Jonathan swallowed hard. So you victimize kids to fuel a dying empire. Helena nodded. Exactly. Jonathan lifted Aaron, hugging him tightly. Then I'm glad we broke them. Varkesh hissed. This is not the end. Helena cut him off. No, it's the beginning. Back on the bridge, a message pinged the screens. A Marine read it aloud. General, Earth's High Command congratulates you. They're asking if you want reinforcements. Helena chuckled softly. For once? No, I think we got everything under control. She looked at Jonathan. Ready to finish this? Jonathan nodded. Let's end their empire. Aaron raised a tiny fist. Yeah, for Dad. Everyone smiled. Even the Bigfoot made a playful roar that echoed through the bridge. The Dominion warship trembled as human forces activated the docking clamps. The dreadnoughts formed a corridor around the captured cruiser. The galaxy watched. History rewrote itself. And all because one quiet father pressed a button labeled Mama Bear. The return to the human flagship was unlike any diplomatic escort in recorded history. Dominion officers, once feared, now walked in shackles, guided by towering Bigfoots and silent but unwavering human soldiers. The dreadnought corridors hummed with energy. Marines lined the walls, weapons at ease but ready. Jonathan carried Aaron in his arms the entire walk. The boy leaned against him, safe at last. Are we going home now? Aaron asked softly. Jonathan kissed his forehead. Soon, buddy. First we have to make sure they never take anyone else again. A nearby Bigfoot nodded, rumbling approval. Aaron whispered. He says, yes. Jonathan blinked. You understood that? Helena raised an eyebrow. Humans and Bigfoots share something. Instinct. Emotional clarity. You'd be surprised how easy it is to understand a species that speaks with its heart. The Bigfoot puffed his chest. Aaron giggled. He says he likes that. The Dominion prisoners were taken to a secured chamber where human interrogators would extract information. Not with torture, but with patience, technology, and an unshakable moral code. Jonathan stood outside the chamber windows, watching Varkesh pacing like a cornered predator. He looks small, Jonathan murmured. Helena replied, Empires always do when stripped of their armor. Jonathan nodded slowly. Good. Later, in the Dreadnought's war room, Helena projected the stolen Dominion data across a massive table. Dozens of red points blinked. Illegal labs, hidden research stations, psychic weapon factories. Jonathan whistled softly. They were planning a war. Not against us, Helena corrected. Against the entire galaxy. Jonathan looked at her sharply. Then we need to warn the others. Helena tapped the map. No. First we dismantle everything they built. The galaxy won't believe us until the Dominion collapses. She activated Reckoning Protocol, a pre-approved network of human fleets, intelligence agencies, and ally forces. One by one, parts of the Dominion map flickered from red to blue. Secured. Seized. Liberated. Jonathan realized something chilling. We planned for this. Helena exhaled. We planned for anything. Humanity has been underestimated for centuries. Every time we talk about war, they laugh. Every time we build defenses, they mock. Every time we evolve, they pretend we're still primitive. She pointed at Aaron. But every species fears one thing above all, our families. Jonathan whispered, because we fight like nothing else when they're threatened. Helena nodded. And now, the Dominion learned that lesson too late. An alert pinged. A transmission, not from Earth, but from a Dominion splinter faction. Helena played it. The alien on screen was trembling violently. General Ward, we surrender. Please protect us. The Dominion command will retaliate. They think you'll destroy us all. Helena frowned. Retaliate? With what? The alien swallowed. They activated Project Leviathan. The room fell silent. Jonathan stiffened. What is that? Helena's jaw clenched. A last resort weapon. Something even more dangerous than a fear extractor. Jonathan hugged Aaron protectively. Is it on the way? No, Helena said grimly. It's already here. The dreadnought shook violently. Lights flickered. A siren blared across the walls. Aaron's eyes widened. Dad! Helena tapped her earpiece. Bridge, report. A terrified voice responded. General, something massive just dropped out of hyperspace. It's a Dominion superweapon. Jonathan whispered. What now? Helena's eyes hardened. Now, she said, we fight harder than we ever have. The dreadnought's deck tilted violently as a shadow eclipsed the stars outside. Massive, armored plates unfolded like the wings of an ancient cosmic beast. The ship, if it could still be called a ship, was easily 10 times the size of a normal Dominion carrier. Jonathan stared at the view screen. What is that thing? Helena replied, her voice steady but strained. The Dominion's buried secret. A weapon forged from psionic technology and planetary-scale machinery. Aaron whispered, It looks angry. Not angry, Helena corrected. Hungry. A deep vibration rattled the hull as the Leviathan charged its main core. Purple energy flared across its surface, like veins pulsing through a monster's skin. Jonathan took a step forward. Can it destroy us? Helena didn't sugarcoat. Yes. A Marine shouted from the console. General, the Leviathan is targeting us. Shields up. Helena barked. Evade pattern Sigma. The dreadnought lurched, engines firing at full burn. Light streaked across the void as the massive human vessel dove beneath the Leviathan's first blast. A torrent of psionic energy tore through space where they had been seconds earlier. The blast didn't just burn space. It rippled it. Jonathan grabbed onto a support beam, holding Aaron close as the ship shook with the aftershock. Can we fight that thing? He shouted over the noise. Helena grimaced. We can delay it, but not defeat it. The Bigfoot behind them roared, slamming its fists together. Sparks flew from the impact. Aaron looked up at the creature. Can you fight it? The Bigfoot tilted its head, sniffing. Its glowing eyes narrowed. Helena glanced at it. He says he can find a way onto it. Jonathan blinked. Onto? That thing is larger than cities. Helena nodded. And Bigfoots don't care. Another tremor hit. Screens flickered. The Leviathan repositioned with terrifying grace for a ship its size. The bridge officer cried out. It's powering up again. Jonathan pressed Aaron into Helena's arms. Keep him safe. Helena's eyes widened. Where are you going? He turned back with fire she hadn't seen in him before. Not grief, not rage, but purpose forged in pain. With him, Jonathan said, nodding to the Bigfoot. We end this from the inside. Helena grabbed his arm. Jonathan, you're not a soldier. No, he said quietly. I'm a father. And fathers do what soldiers can't. Aaron reached out, voice trembling. Dad, don't go. Jonathan crouched, cupping Aaron's face in his hands. Buddy, you're my whole world. I promise I will come back. But if that thing survives, nobody will be safe. Not you, not anyone. Aaron's lip trembled. But I'm scared. Jonathan hugged him tightly. I know. And being scared means you care. That's bravery, Aaron. The Bigfoot stepped closer and placed its massive hand on Jonathan's shoulder. Helena inhaled sharply. It accepts you. Jonathan gave a small, shaky smile. Guess I'm part of the pack now. Minutes later, Jonathan and the Bigfoot stood in the dreadnought airlock, armored suits sealed. Helena's voice crackled through the comm. We'll get you as close as possible. Once you're on the Leviathan, you'll lose contact. Try to find the core. Overload it. Jonathan nodded. All right. The Bigfoot roared, eager. Locating breach point, the pilot announced. Brace for hard dock. The dreadnought slammed into the Leviathan's outer plating. Sparks exploded across the viewport. Docking complete, Helena said. Jonathan, good luck. He smiled faintly. See you soon. The airlock door blew open. A blast of cold, airless vacuum rushed in. The Bigfoot leaped first, launching itself across the gap with incredible force. Jonathan followed. The void swallowed him. They hit the Leviathan's plating hard. Jonathan rolled, gasping, while the Bigfoot landed gracefully, claws gripping the armored surface. Ahead, a glowing seam marked the maintenance hatch. They approached it. A sudden tremor pulsed through the plating. Jonathan looked up. The Leviathan's main core flared purple. It was preparing a planet-killer blast. Jonathan whispered, God help us. The Bigfoot roared, and together they tore open a hatch, descending into the belly of the Dominion's last nightmare. The hatch sealed behind them with a clang, plunging the corridor into pulsing purple gloom. Cables slithered to the ceiling like veins, carrying psionic energy toward the core. Jonathan's visor flickered from the interference. Where do we go? The Bigfoot sniffed the air, then pointed forward. Jonathan nodded. Lead the way. They moved quickly through winding metallic tunnels. The deeper they descended, the louder the Leviathan's core hummed. It felt like standing inside a giant heartbeat, but the sound wasn't steady. It was growing faster, angrier. A countdown. Back on the dreadnought, Helena monitored the Leviathan's fluctuating energy. Core readings rising, the officer reported. If it fires at full capacity, it'll wipe out 3 sectors. Helena clenched her fists. Jonathan, hurry. Aaron pressed both hands against the glass of the observation deck. Dad, please be safe. The Bigfoot beside him rumbled a comforting sound. Aaron sniffed. He says Dad will win. The Bigfoot nodded firmly. Inside the Leviathan, Jonathan and his companion reached the central chamber, a vast, spiraling cathedral of energy. The core hung above them like a pulsating star caged by metal ribs. Jonathan whispered, awestruck, It's alive. The Bigfoot roared, not in warning but in fury. It despised this place. It despised what the Dominion tried to create. Jonathan hurried toward the control console at the far side. It was a massive, circular platform of runes, screens, and psionic conduits. He placed a hand on it. His visor flashed with warnings. Interface requires neural input. Warning. Fear extraction possible. Jonathan froze. So that's how it powers itself. The Leviathan didn't just use psionics. It used emotion, and it wanted his. The Bigfoot snarled, stepping in front of Jonathan, but Jonathan held up a hand. No, this is something I have to do. Jonathan touched the interface. The machine awakened. Purple tendrils of energy surged through the console, wrapping around his arm. His vision distorted. His fear, or what Louis had, pressed to the surface. Images flashed. Aaron crying in the pod. Jonathan alone in the workshop. The soldiers dragging his son away. But then, another image. Aaron reaching for him. Helena's steady hand. The Bigfoot protecting him. Jonathan opened his eyes, filled with fire. No, you don't get to use that. He slammed his free hand onto the emergency override. The core screamed. The Leviathan shook violently. Purple light erupted across the chamber as the machine lost ability. The Bigfoot grabbed Jonathan and yanked him away just before the console exploded. Jonathan gasped, visor cracked, arm numb. Did it work? The Bigfoot sniffed the air, then nodded. The core was destabilizing. Jonathan laughed weakly. We did it! Then the Leviathan roared. A massive pulse rippled through the chamber. Panels collapsed. The core ignited, preparing to self-destruct. Jonathan staggered. We have to go. The Bigfoot scooped him up like a child and sprinted through the corridors. Metal buckled behind them. Explosions tore through the walls. Energy bolts blasted overhead. They reached the outer hatch. The Bigfoot shoved Jonathan through, then leaped out after him. Just as the Leviathan detonated, a blinding sphere of violet fire expanded outward, engulfing the massive ship. Jonathan tumbled into the void. His suit alarms blared. Oxygen low. Trajectory unstable. Explosion imminent. The Bigfoot grabbed him mid-spin, shielding him with its body. Then, a beam of light swallowed them. They were inside a human tractor field. Helena's voice cracked over comms. Pull them in. Now! Jonathan crashed onto the dreadnought deck, gasping. Aaron sprinted into his arms. Dad! Jonathan collapsed to his knees, hugging him tighter than ever. You came back, Aaron whispered. Jonathan kissed his forehead. I promised I would. The Bigfoot roared triumphantly, raising its arms. Everyone cheered. Helena approached, placing a hand on Jonathan's shoulder. You saved the galaxy today, she said softly. Jonathan shook his head. No, we saved my son. The galaxy was just included. Helena chuckled. Fair enough. The dreadnought engines hummed as they drifted away from the burning remnants of the Leviathan. The Dominion's last hope died in the void. Its empire collapsed with it. Aaron tugged Jonathan's sleeve. Dad. Yes, buddy? Aaron smiled. Can we go home now? Jonathan lifted him into his arms. Yes, he said. Let's go home. A Bigfoot gently patted Aaron's head, almost like a blessing. And as the ship turned toward the stars, the galaxy learned a final truth. You can threaten nations. You can threaten armies. But threaten a human child, and humanity becomes a storm.